Well, thanks everybody for attending. So we're going to talk about everybody's favorite topic. And we're going to be doing this by really diving into the exciting journey that Station Casino is doing as they see really the power of GenAI agents. All right, we're thrilled at KPMG to be supporting their initiative by leveraging an AI data solution that we pre-built, all right? And this is all built on OCI, but it allows us to deploy custom agents. And we're doing this for their procure-to-pay process to help them manage accruals and also to do financial analysis, and they're helping them with their reporting.
Thanks, Tim. Hopefully everybody's having a great week so far here. Yeah, great. We're here for a fireside chat with Station Casinos. They're a partner that at KPMG we strive to get. I couldn't ask for a better partnership as we've gone through. We started having conversations with them back in January, kind of going down this AI path, and we've been kind of learning on the way together, collaboratively, and kind of working towards how we really establish we can use AI to drive value and get that from across. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Station Casinos to the stage.
All right, good crowd. These guys. Hey.
Excellent, great. So why don't we start, CJ, if you mind giving a quick introduction?
Sure. CJ Foster, I'm the CIO for Station Casinos. I've been with the company just a little bit shy of 8 years. Been in the role of CIO for 2 of those and was previously the CISO for the organization. Prior to that, at Caesars Entertainment for 19 years through a myriad of jobs between IT and business operations. Right?
So Frank Zarita, been at Stations and as well in the gaming industry for 30 plus years. Interestingly enough, started out as a bike officer, so been in the physical security space, then moved into training development, then marketing, and now here in IT. Duffy?
Hey, Andrew Duffy, Director of Strategic Implementation and Projects. Been with the team since 2018. Started in the finance space and then moved over as we started leveraging Oracle and going into the ERP landscape. So excited to be here.
Excellent, great. I've got a few bad jokes or dad jokes, depending on how you look at it. So why don't we, casino-related, double down on paying attention? For the first question here for CJ. Can you share what digital transformation means for Station Casinos and what you were hoping to achieve as you embarked on this journey?
Yeah, look, I think for us, when we started, thinking about AI, maybe a year and change ago, the president and Lorenzo, one of our co-chairmen, asked about it. We really started talking about where are we going, and we quickly figured out that digital transformation is going to be a part of this. Stations is a big company, but we like to operate small, and we still have some manual processes that are quite frankly going to need to change as we think about this, so that we can digitize the data, get it into a standard format, and start to leverage it from an AI perspective. So yeah, I mean, look, it's a big part of it. But I mean, Frank, you've been with the company for 30 years. What's your view?
Yeah, it's interesting because, we're this nice big enterprise nowadays, but we start off as an entrepreneurial company and, we keep that still in our DNA, which I think is interesting because when you think about what we do as a company and, leveraging our team members and our leaders to identify those interesting or value opportunities, and the company's willing to just jump in and, prove it out and then, move it across and scale across the organization.
That's great. Andrew, can you talk about what agents you implemented so far and what benefits you're starting to see?
Yeah, so when we started, we had no idea where we were going to go. We just needed a willing business group. So Dave Holzer in our purchasing land, we released the policy agent there and then decided to go into our AP area, and we created a payment agent to help analyze. With our current project for EPM transformation, we're building a P&L analyst agent, and there's another one in the pipeline. Hopefully by the end of the year, we'll start for an accrual agent. And that was really just to try to find value out of the gate, not return on equity, return on investment. It was just, let's see how we can do this process and learn.
That's great. And, Frank, with these, these first round of agents, what lessons learned have you seen so far?
Yeah, what's interesting, I think the first one we launched, that was pretty straightforward. We've seen a lot of just, simple utility. I think when we got to the AP agent, when we released it, there was some hesitation and, some concerns, and the person using it was getting the value. But when we retroed with the group, we kind of recognized, hey, was this really the agent we should have started with, or, should we have used AI? And I think, as you look at AI and where you want to implement it, I think understanding the use case is going to be really important because, I think of it, things that you need for precision, you probably may not want to use AI versus things where you need some, maybe some general approach. So I think the interesting thing is we got together, we said, hey, probably need to revisit that and see if there might be another, whether it's an Oracle solution or a report in order to see what we can do to leverage it. And then we moved into the P&L agent, and I think, I remember when Duffy came walking into my office going, we're right there, but it just seems like we're missing something. Mm-hmm. And we talked about prototyping, and what does he do? Runs off, goes, whips up some prototyping, says, what about this? And, I think that's when some lights started to, to shine. And I think from there, you started to see the group kind of run with it.
Yeah, and I think that conversation was part of that journey that we learned is if we're not having dialogue and being aggressively collegiate with each other, we're not going to learn that process. This is brand new for everyone, both the development side, the use case side, and just there's no editorial pride. Like, you were like, hey, what about this? And I was like, gosh, that's a great idea. I literally went on Claude and I created 2 prototype images and I sent it to the team. I was like, does this work? And they were like, yeah. And it was just having that iterative process and open dialogue. And you got to recognize you're going to crawl, walk, run, right? I mean, I'm not going to steal the baseball line that I love that CJ uses, but Rod Cruz in the Hall of Fame with bunts and singles. And that's all we're trying to do right now. We're going to strike out a lot, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Quite a few.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always loved Andrew's, AI enthusiast kind of approach. It's always nice. Throughout this whole project, he'd been sending Tim and I articles and links and fun things that he's found to kind of help drive us and kind of keep our team kind of motivated and going. So it's been great. I think one of the most impactful and probably powerful parts of the story is how you brought your people along on this journey with you. CJ, do you mind sharing some points, some moments that stood out?
Yeah, again, a year and a half ago, the president, sat down and said, hey, how should we be thinking about this AI? Again, one of our co-chairmen, Lorenzo, who is the more tech-forward of the two, was engaged in that conversation. I said, look, I think let's bring together a group of people and let's start to talk about this. And so our AI governance today is our president, Lorenzo, one of our co-chairmen, our COO, our CFO, our SVP of slots. That's obviously the largest part of our revenue, and just he's a really smart guy, and a few other people, and then Frank and I from an IT perspective. And at first, it was really about aligning to, at first it was like this nebulous big bucket of things, and really starting to define agentic and generative and machine learning and all these things, and how do we want to approach? What value do we want to get from it? And as we started to move through, again, Duffy was talking about the agents we deployed. What we also realized is we're going to have to upskill team members, right? There's going to be a lot of training involved, and so we brought Chris Smith, our Senior Vice President of Human Resources, into the group as well. And that led to discussions about, well, guys, people are using it today. Let's really start to think about our policies, our enterprise policies. We got one of those out, which created a lot of dialogue and questions. Now we started to put training programs together as we were giving access to things like Microsoft Copilot. We're requiring training for people to go through. And again, it's a top-down lead right now, and we're trying to move the whole organization together. Now, it means we're going to go a little bit slower, which is fine. But we got a good group of people focused on it. And again, right now it's about learning, not necessarily huge wins.
That's great. And then Frank, we have our first agents in production. We're going to be doing this accruals agent. Can you discuss how we really measure the success of these agents, right? And how do we ensure they keep adding value, right? Especially once they're in the wild, right? They're being used in production and they're constantly evaluated. Can you just kind of discuss some of the things that you're seeing around how you measure the agents?
Yeah, I think early on when we talk about measuring value, I think for us right now, it's about the learning, right? Figuring out what does this technology do? How does it impact our team members? That, I think, is probably one of the biggest, learning opportunities and measurements. So as we start to get comfortable with it, not to mention that we are eventually going to, use, KPIs to talk about, how much money is it saving us or making us or time it's saving. But I think right now, I think we're really focused in on, how can we learn how to leverage this technology and how to, what CJ said earlier, how do we upskill our team members so that they're able to leverage this technology in a meaningful way?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I know in our conversations, it's easy to want to do KPI to prove what you can do. And one of the most unique pieces of our conversation is after we had the first agent developed for AP, goes into production, and we're sitting there and we're talking, and you're like, hey, can we do a thumbs up, thumbs down, just for an interaction to let us know? Yeah, we could see the utilization on logs, but get a feedback loop in there. So it was like, gosh, how did we miss that from the first one? Like almost every AI has that now, but even further on, it's like maybe a short little input screen so that we can get that feedback, because that's how you should measure it. It shouldn't be a KPI or a dollar amount right now. It's like, let's get good at how we're going to do what we're going to do.
Yeah, look, I think for where we're at right now, right, we're a highly efficient organization from a culture perspective. So I don't know that we're ever really going to fully justify AI on, we're going to be able to remove, hundreds of headcount from our organization. I just don't see that. So for us, it's really about identifying team members that need to get more efficient and giving them tools to be more efficient and create a better team member experience so that they in turn can go focus on value-added tasks and drive value that way, not from a pure headcount reduction, at least not now, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get wins without even knowing it. So when we sat down with the first couple of business groups, we had some great engagement. When you go to other business groups, they hear the sizzle that's out there, and they just think it, you spin it out of thin air. And they're like, well, how can it even help us? And it takes a few conversations to really put that seed that'll grow into something more. And then, thankfully for us, it turned into this massive backlog that we've now generated. But how do you measure that? That's a psychological change in the way that people think and changing their religion.
Yeah, and that's a key aspect, right? Getting the people along, kind of tying back to before, right? The people coming along on that journey and kind of diving into that. On my flight out here, I don't know how many of you are runners or not. The Chicago Marathon happened on this past Sunday, so I was on the airplane. There was someone sitting next to me wearing their medal. I congratulated them, got to talking with them, kind of talking about how their approach towards the marathon, how they went through it, and what they have next on the road. It kind of tied back to directly this next question for CJ. So knowing this isn't a short-term project, it's a long-term journey, how do you keep the commitment strong and ensure this delivers value over time?
Look, I think for us, it's grabbing short-term value where it's at. Again, whether that's we've deployed things into production or we've learned things so that we can move forward in a different way and reorient process with a long-term view of where we're going to be, right? Early on, as Frank and I were having dialogue, Frank was like, hey, man, we got to look at agentic AI. No, let's go build an LLM for the entire enterprise. Let's go get advanced models and, refigure out how to, do forecasting for slot volume. And, over time, I figured out, man, those are a long, long way away. Yeah. Man, I got a lot of data work to do before we can get to there. And then, Frank's like, all right, let's talk about agentic, right? And now that's where we're at. Where we sit today, I think there's a huge value add today for agentic work, and we're in the process of setting up our agentic development pipeline. We'll be in 2-week sprints. We like to hope, between 13 and 26, depending on how many sprints it takes to build an agent. We'd like to deploy that in the next 12 months, 13 to 26 agents. And then from a long-term perspective, that's where we really start to talk about data. What data do we need? Digital transformation. As an example, we were in what's called a use case harvesting conversation, and the idea of being able to utilize contractual data came up in this particular use case, and everyone's like, oh, this is great, we should do this. I'm like, hey, guys, time out. Our contracts aren't digitized today. Well, great, let's bring someone in, let's digitize all the contracts. Well, we can do that, but then tomorrow, all the new contracts aren't going to be digitized. So we got to back up and really think about our entire contractual process so that we can make sure that we fix the pipeline there. So for us, very short term, certainly with agentic, and then taking this long-term approach, 3 to 5 years, casinos have a massive amount of data, right? It's just not well organized and in a position to be leveraged in models and such, right? And so we've got a long road to hoe on, getting that data organized, building that meta layer, building that semantic layer, so that is, today we've got, models that'll come up and, okay, we need this data, and then it takes us 3 to 5 months to get that data all curated and put together to hand off to them. No, we need to be able to move in days, right? Yeah. Okay, you need this data, here it is in the lake, subscribe to it here, and move on. And that's where we're headed. So.
I think to that point, though, that's probably how and why we started in Oracle, right? We've been in ERP and all of our financials for 4 years, HCM 6 or 7, procurement a year. The data was already pure, clean, organized, and ready to go. It did help that they had the OCI stack, and we had KPMG and now AI Studio, but it allowed us to just quickly hit the ground running and do those, wow, that's a good idea, let's try it. That's a good idea, try it. Whereas you have this massive, cumbersome process with all the other data sources in our organization that you have to shore up before you can even get there.
All with all the added complexity on AI is changing every day and advancing very quickly, and what we knew 6 months ago has changed greatly right over even this journey that we've been on.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking earlier just how important change management is, right? So, of course, there's a tech side implementing agents, right? But it is a shift for the business and how we work with the business, right? Real true partnership on a lot of how we design prompts and how they're going to use the prompts to really run their business. Andrew, can you talk just about how important that change management is and that partnering with the business?
Yeah, I think the best way to explain it is everybody's used to just Googling something very broad, and then you sift through it all, and then they're hearing AI agents or AI, go to ChatGPT and you put it in. It's going to give you something. Whether it's right or wrong, you need to figure that out. So the better your prompt is, the better your thought process is. That doesn't sound like a big task, but it literally is where we spend probably 70% of our time in every one of the sprints that we've done for the agents, is really getting that refinement, because some people use, for example, handle to get a certain number for the slots, or some people use volume, some people use all these different terms, and the agent has to be trained in the SQL to be able to understand and interpret that. So, there's this very important role that I believe individual between the tech developer and the business has to play to be able to translate those two and bring it. And you can't just hand it to the person once it's built in the users, because then they're going to either not use it incorrectly, and they get frustrated with it. So you have to care for it. It's a baby. Be pregnant, birth it, grow it, and feed it, and care for it.
That's great. Good. All right. Next question. All right. So KPMG, right? You're on this AI transformation journey. Why did you choose KPMG as a partner, CJ?
Yeah, look, we've implemented a number of parts of the Oracle stack, and I think we've actually used a different SI for each portion for various reasons. So as we looked at this, what we wanted was a good balance between technical expertise and business expertise. We felt like KPMG brought that to the table as my team talked to the technical team. Okay, here's where we're looking, and then we could bring in another set of people that could have conversations with our finance team or our procurement team, and we all felt good about those conversations. But really, I think the biggest thing is, again, highly efficient organization that likes to operate small. We needed someone that we're not good at change management, right? And that's what we really felt like, as we talked to, and I gave her props earlier, Judy, as you guys brought her to the table, we felt really good about what you guys could help us from a change management, and really think, how do we communicate early? How do we communicate often? How do we communicate in different mediums so that people can start to consume all this stuff? That's really the big one, is the change management along with the business and technical expertise. I'm sure you guys
I think it definitely started with relationships, and you guys brought that to the table along with everything.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I think we're all learning together through this change management. I mean, AI is moving so quickly that, we're all starting almost at the same starting point. And I think, having the right partner with that technical skill, the change management is being a key component, leveraging our expertise with both from a technology perspective and leveraging our stakeholders in the business to be able to really deliver a great product. I mean, it's that partnership.
collective.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for the kind words. They truly mean a lot on this partnership and this journey. It's been fun for both Tim and I and the whole team kind of diving into it. So
Yeah, it's not always fun for Tim and Pradeep, but they're
Right, you always say it's right. We want to see this in the wild, right? I use that all the time.
Yeah,
Right? It's cool to see these things actually in production, to go from, initial pilot, right, to fine tuning these agents and see, results and actually impacting the business, right? It's a really cool
like 2
thing
weeks
to
ago
see.
when we showed the OpCo, the agent, like the light bulbs were just exploding everywhere because you could start to see the depth of potential and future benefit that you could build from this one little box that we've created.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're deploying EPM with you guys at the same time that we're doing this, and so we've been having these calls with our what we call our DOF, Director of Finance, around EPM. And I would say maybe the first 2 or 3 calls, not a lot of interaction from the DOS, but then it seemed like right after the AI discussion, again, the light bulbs went off, and then the next call, it was question after question, and what about this, and what about that? And it was great to see sort of the whole group start to go, okay, now I get it. Let's start moving this direction and have more input and dialogue to what we were trying to accomplish. Right?
Yeah, it was great. It was like if I started talking really, really low, everybody's going to lean in to hear me. All of a sudden, all the DOFs stood up and were like, hey, what can this do for me? And I think you just got the email this morning, Tim. We're going to do a whole day workshop with that entire CFO director team just to walk through the agent and try to figure out a future roadmap that we can continue to build on it with.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't think we touched on it, but we talked about that accrual agent that Duff's going to start working on. And what's really great about that, and again, not about necessarily removing bodies from the organization, but the DOF is a crucial role at each of our property operations. And during close week, they were spending 20 hours a week each, managing their accrual process, understanding what new accruals do I need to do, what accruals are going to roll off, which accruals do I need to reaccrue, and then what accruals do I need to get for the next month. And this accrual agent is basically going to take that out of their world and give them back 20 hours in close week that they can start to dig into financials, understand, what questions are going to be asked. Go talk to the business. Hey, why are your covers down? Why is this cost up? And they're going to be able to spend a tremendous amount of more time in the business. And again, it's not about reducing the staff, but now they're going to be able to focus on these value-added tasks, not just this rote sort of tactical approach to accounting. They're going to be able to spend time with our business constituents, starting to understand what's working, what's not working, what do we need to change, who needs help here. Huge value for us once we get that into
And it was great how that all materialized, right? So we had a pre-built agent that we did for accruals. We demoed it, and a light bulb went off, right? For the DOS, said, okay, we can do this, we can do that, and they really brought use cases, and then they brought their prompts, their questions, right? And then, like Andrew said, he helped us with a prototype, right? We showed the prototype.
You need that engagement, right? Like I know enough about finance, accounting that I can give 2 or 3 quick wins for them, but that true depth beyond what that 30-hour benefit's going to be, that's where you need them to go, hey, this is what else it can do. And to me, you look at this accrual agent, the next generation of that in a year should be a human in the loop where it's not only telling me what I need to do, but putting the journal entries together and then saying, click this button to submit, right? So it's having all of that, but again, it's that engagement process I was talking about earlier. Is once you get that, it's a powerful mix.
Yeah.
That's like the key aspect there, right, too, right? There's going to be a lot of embedded out-of-the-box agents. There's going to be a lot of templates and starting points and all that, but it's really, once you take it back to the business and kind of have them kind of see how it can actually help them, right? Almost rethinking of the process versus kind of just enabling the agent to do the process.
I mean, even the P&L agent we're doing, right? Just the discovery, going through variance analysis and financial reporting and finding the drivers. I mean, that was a discovery, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was incredible, right?
But even that teaches you, like, our data was good. It wasn't great. So then we were finding where we needed to improve the data inside the cube of the EPBCS environment so that the agent and also reports would be better. And we probably hadn't thought about that until the agent couldn't figure out what it was doing. And we're like, why is it giving such weird results? And then Pradeep and team went back and said, here, this is why. And we're like, oh yeah, that's wrong over here. Let's go fix it.
Yeah. And what we're doing too as part of our platform, the concept of suggested prompts. Like, what are the frequent prompts that the business uses and questions they ask? So we got, great prompts and, really a great contribute.
Yeah, that space is a great area because it's more management reporting based.
Yeah.
You don't have regulations and audit. And Obviously, we have gaming control here. Those areas are really tough to figure out where the use cases can be because you have to put so many guardrails in. It's probably not worth it out of the gate.
Yeah, I mean, Tim and I can take it out there and kind of try to drive the excitement, but I think what we're seeing here, right, is when it's your own team kind of going through and kind of seeing the possibilities and kind of sharing it, kind of spreads like wildfire. So, that's great. Keeping up with the casino-related puns, I think that's been a jackpot of information. And for the bad jokes, you guys will know AI enthusiast. I put it into my agent, asked if I should tell jokes. It said no, definitely don't do it. I also kept the human in the loop and said, no, I'm going to do it anyway. So, as we come closer to the end, kind of reach out to each of you to kind of see if there's one thing that you think the audience could kind of take away from this and they should kind of think about as they go back to their companies, to their organizations as well. What would that be?
Oh, you're going to limit me to one? There's so many. Look, I think, don't be in a hurry. Right? I think that's probably the biggest thing. My scenario, right? I've got one leader that has got some scar tissues, just ran IT earlier in his career, so has a pretty deep understanding, but also remembers when we put a lot of money in things like big data and didn't get returns. And so cautiously optimistic about AI, and then it's not going to be another big data. And then I've got another leader that sees this as transformational tech, and I constantly have to remind him, we're not wheeling the Whopper computer into the data center and turning the company over to it, right? But it's good to have sort of these wide views because the truth really is right in the middle somewhere, right? And so it creates dialogue for us to have, and as we have our bi-monthly AI governance discussions with this group that I talked about, I end at each meeting with, look, I think we're right where we need to be. We're not early to the table, we're not late to the table, we're learning it at where we need to be, we're ingesting our lessons learned, and we're not trying to light the world on fire right now. It's really about learning and realizing, hey, we're right where we need to be. Let's be slow, let's be methodical. Let's not make massive investments that we don't know how it's going to pay off. Let's try and do stuff that we know what we can do for now and be okay with small results right now. So.
Yeah, I'll tell you for me, and you talked about it earlier, is, digital transformation. As we look at our company, one of the things that we know is a lot of our information is tribal, right? It's all in our head. Yeah. So imagine trying to get an AI to produce results based on that. It's not going to happen. So you definitely got to digitize your processes. And when you think about the process too, is also talking about how do you ingest things, right? Duffy's done a great job working with the business to start to curate, I think at an overwhelmingly rate that I don't know that we can consume well.
Yeah, you're constantly telling me, slow down,
don't
do that.
But it's great to have those ideas. So you got to be able to ideate, get those ideas come in so that you can start to sift through them. And we talked a little about prototyping, and I think that's really important so you can quickly see what that value is, right? So you have a series of prompts, right? Problem you're going to solve. What are some series of prompts that you might ask? And then that prototype to go, hey, here's the result, right? Does that meet your business needs? Because then you hand that right off to the end user to go, okay, can I take action on that, right? And I think that's really important. We talked about thumbs up. How do we get feedback, right? And then the care and feeding of that agent and the LLMs that you're going to be exposed to and exposing team members to and helping them with training. You need to just keep an eye on that whole process and, just know it's a journey, that's for sure.
Yeah. I would say amongst everything that there's a long list for is you got to have the right team leading. So I'm not just because he's my boss and he's sitting here, both of them, but they've enabled me where they actually have to pull me back sometimes. It's just go find the opportunity, let us know what's out there, and bring it back. And having the attitude of let's see what we can do, not measure it, not put guardrails on it and say it has to be X, Y, Z and put it in a box. Like, let's just figure out what we don't know. Like, just having that sort of 5-year-old wide-eyed view of the world of, let me go out there and bump around and figure things out. And, learning to ride a bike, you're going to fall off a bunch of times. And these, to their credit, CJ and Frank have always been like, okay, what are we going to do the next time then? It's not, well, we did that wrong and let's burn it down and then never look back. Is having that patience, having the right leadership and engagement, and you got to be in it. Like you're the old Nike, you just do it. Like you can't do it halfway or half.
Yeah, start.
Just go, and like you said, it's a journey. And constantly have feedback loops and have that communication with your business, with the leadership, because it will reach a tipping point where in the AI steer co in a year, 2 years, they're going to go, okay, the tech's good enough, the data's good enough, we are strong enough. Let's really, run downhill with this.
Yeah, and look, be okay with making mistakes. Again, not on the agentic side and not with KPMG, but early on when I was telling Frank, no, let's do a new forecasting model, right? We brought a large number of people together and engaged a very large tech company on how we forecast, right? And Frank can probably correct me if I get it wrong, but like as we looked at our models, how we did it with humans, we can get to what it's 95% accuracy, 96% accuracy, and this big tech company couldn't get within 85%. Right, with all of their AI this, and the data fabrics and all this, and one could look at it and go, man, you guys just wasted a huge amount of man hours on this, right? But it wasn't. That wasn't the view. The view was, okay, great. What did we learn from it? Well, this, and this, and okay, let's refocus over here. And hey, we may need to take a couple steps back and rethink some data stuff before we move forward with that again, right?
Yeah, I think it also helps check yourself as well. You're not thinking about that, but it's like, okay, we just marked ourselves to market. We're actually doing a good job at this, so we'll focus somewhere else and come back to that in a year maybe and market again.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. The tech may be there, or I mean, even like the make mistakes, right? It's okay. Or to build an agent that 6 months from now is a little bit obsolete because of a newer tech or new agent that comes along and kind of changes that process or kind of reworks that process. So. Excellent.
Anything
Great.
else?
Well, thanks everyone for coming. We hope you found this valuable. I know we have a booth that you can come visit, and I know there's going to be a QR code to scan to kind of do a survey. And otherwise, we'll be up around in the front if you have any follow-up questions for us.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.